Thank you all for joining in. So this is our second session for Tech Day Pakistan. So we've been doing this data series for the past few weeks, and we had like the previous week we had our first session, and we'll be doing this every month at least two sessions in order to sort of speed up with our trying to contribute as much as we can with the data series sessions and with the Power BI and the other data tools that are within the Microsoft's data platform. So just to tell you a bit about my background. My name is Mohammed Misbauddin, and I'm actually a senior analyst at Affinity and been working in healthcare, telco, and energy sector for the past few years, particularly on the data and the AI side of things. You could look at my details on my LinkedIn profile. And yeah, so today we have someone special joining in, someone from the Microsoft's data um, platforms, and he's been an MVP for past few years, as well as he's a director um, at Expert Analytics. His name is Kevin Arnold. So welcome, Kevin.
Hi, welcome. Thank you.
So yeah, so Kevin, you can start, sort of sharing your content, and then we can get right into it.
All right, we'll do. Let me hit share here. Get to the right set of slides, and then bring you back up over where I can kind of see things. Sometimes Teams likes to play a little bit funny. There we go. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Very glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me. So my presentation today is entitled Improve Your DAX Skills with dax.do. And we'll get into what the dax.do platform is here in just a little bit. Just to reintroduce myself, Kevin Arnold. The company I work for is Expert Analytics. I'm based in the US, out of Dallas, Texas area. And I am a Microsoft MVP that was just awarded to me earlier this year. I've been working on it for a couple years trying to get to it, but I did just finally get that award. So I'm, very happy to be there. If you want to reach out to me about anything you see in this presentation or other things, I would recommend Twitter at Kev Arnold, and you'll know it's the right Twitter account by my little icon here. I use that on all my social medias. Have him over top of my shoulder here. Sometimes he's the devil whispering in my ear. Sometimes somebody thinks it's an angel, but I think most of the time, at least on social media, it's the devil. All right, so enough about me. Let's get into dax.do. Okay, so the introduction of it. dax.do is given to us by the wonderful people at SQL BI. Hopefully you guys know who SQL BI is. Marco and Alberto are the faces of SQL BI. They have a couple other people behind the scenes, but they're the ones you see in all their great videos, great content. They're Microsoft MVPs as well, have been for a number of years, have been doing data analytics, business intelligence type work for years. They do a lot of training now and a lot of education for bringing people like, mere mortals like us up to speed on Power BI, DAX, and especially everything DAX. They are very much the expert in DAX. Okay, so they classify dax.do as a sandbox for practicing DAX queries. And that last word in that bullet point is important, queries. When we're dealing with Power BI, we're thinking of DAX in the majority of the time as a measure. And you can read the definition of the measure right there that comes right from Microsoft. Right, but it's a calculation that's going to return a single value, excuse me, depending on the context at the time, right? We get a lot into contract transition and filter context versus row context, all of that, right? Again, the SQL BI guys have even some newer videos on that. But the queries is what we could write within this sandbox. And queries are a very important thing to understand in addition to measures. So a query, if you think about it, if you know SQL, it's a lot like the SQL statement. It's going to return a result set in the form of a table. And these queries are used all over the place, sometimes without us really knowing about them, right? And the second set of bullets here that you can see on the screen start telling you places that it's at. Obviously, we know it's in Power BI. We could see that by the performance analyzer, and we're actually going to have one of those examples here on the next slide. Paginated reports. If you're using paginated reports within the Power BI platform now, especially if you have premium per user, or even just doing it off your own desktop, you can write paginated reports that go against Power BI data sets, i.e. models, right? So you write DAX queries in order to get that. Power BI, the paginated report builder will help you write those queries, but it's good to understand what the queries are doing in case you need to tweak it, change it. I had one case where I was writing a paginated report against the data set. The generated query performed extremely slow, and I ended up writing a whole big query to get the results that I wanted in a very, very efficient way. So it's good to know in that case. Calculated tables that we see within Power BI desktop is just a query that is going to stand up that table within your data model. And then we see queries a lot of times in books, in articles. And so it's good to understand when we're looking at a query versus looking at a measure to help you kind of make that transition. Okay, so now that we have kind of the basis of what it is, I do want to first show you the example that I'm going to go through. Okay, so this is a DAX query on this right-hand side in the black that was built, that I captured. It was built by Power BI. I captured it within Power BI using the performance analyzer feature within the Power BI desktop. So this stood up this query, and obviously it's a query because it tells us that right at the beginning. And we could see the different parts that it's going through. It's doing a lot of variables, and then this evaluate and this order by. We're going to use dax.do and pretty much reconstruct the different parts of this query to help us learn dax.do. All right, so let's go ahead and go. I'm going to put into the chat here, and hopefully it'll be available on the recording later, a link to all of the exercises that I have done with dax.do, or at least for this presentation. So if you wanted to follow along or look at the results, you could also scan this QR code that I have up on the page. That'll set you up for it. All right, so let me come over here. I'm going to start a new web browser, and I'm going to start mine in private mode because I want to show everybody something when we first go to dax.do. So dax.do is a website. The URL is simply dax.do, dax.do. And we're going to go ahead and hit enter. And this is the first thing we get. I'm going to pause this video. This is how it will first look for anybody coming up to dax.do the very first time. It'll expand this box up top. There's a video that'll play where Marco will introduce you to dax.do. And I'm going to go through a lot of the same statement. If you want to just hear it with an Italian accent, sometimes things sound better with the Italian accent, feel free to go ahead and listen to him. So you can see, the features that it has. You could code, run, and share DAX. And we'll talk a lot about the sharing, or some about the sharing. You could knock this pane down by this little chevron right here. And of course, it's always available by clicking on it to expand again. And then you have the basic interface with dax.do. So on this far left-hand side is our data model. and the tables within our data model. The middle box is where we will enter and write our DAX code. This box over here will be very, very important to us as we keep moving on. This shows the help content from DAX Guide. Dax.guide is another tool that the SQL BI people company gives to us. And this is really going to be what helps us learn, understand, and build DAX. This middle pane here is that shows the grid right now is going to be where all our result sets goes. And then the bottom has history. They have a advertising little plug here. This is going to kind of filter through some of their the offers that they have, the classes that they have. You see they do let you X out of it. If you haven't looked at their trading in the past, it's a good idea to do that. They have some of the best training that everybody that I talked to that has taken it has very much loved it. I'm going to get rid of that so that I have just a little bit more room. Okay. And if there's, if you want me to slow down or anything, just let me know. Otherwise I'll just kind of keep going and moving through this. Okay. There is a toolbar up here, and you see most everything is not enabled at this point. We do have a way that if you think you find a bug, you could click on that and it'll pop up. Like where it popped up at. I'm going to get rid of that. It'll pop up another window. Oh, it pops up for sending an email. I just saw that at the very bottom of my screen. You email them with what the bug information is. You could change your theme. I happen to like dark mode, but you could click on it and you could see it in light mode. I'm going to change that back. And then you could click on what the options are. That's what this last button does. So you could change things around your editor, results, hide table names, different spacing. I tend to leave everything turned on just as what the defaults are, and I don't mess with this. But, if you don't want to give them anonymous usage data, anything else, feel free to go ahead and turn that off. Okay, so
Kevin,
I want to go through, yes.
Just sorry to interrupt you.
Mm-hmm.
Could you share that link again? I think it seems not able to access that. I think maybe you could share with me the actual. Is that linked to the exercise, or is it just to the dax.do platform?
Here, let me try that. Maybe it's not working anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what you should end up seeing on that link is a page that looks like this.
Okay.
Okay. These first set of tabs are all code that I've written under dax.do, and it will open up the saved queries for dax.do. Are you seeing this page when you go there?
Not able to access this page for some reason, but yeah, I think maybe I could
share this direct link rather than going through the tiny URL.
Yeah.
The Gitobi link. Tell me if that one works for you.
I think it should be that should work. Let me try. Okay.
That working better?
Never mind. I think I'm not able to access that link for some reason. Just yeah, I'm not able to access but yeah, I think probably I can get those files from you later on.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's been been an issue. Like if I'm on a certain VPN or whatever. So I think some VPNs have blocked it out on me. So I'll find another way to I might have a different link share that I could provide here in a little bit.
Sure.
Apologies for that. That's a good thing to remember. I need to fix that. Okay, so let's go through and look a little bit deeper at the data model that dax.do provides to us. And actually, they provide us two different data models. The first one is something that is probably familiar to a lot of people, the contosal data model. And then the second one is a model they specifically wrote for DAX Guide. It looks a lot like the Contoso data model, but just has a couple extra things. And we'll dive into a little bit on each one of these. I'm going to stick with the DAX, with the Contoso data model. And I'm going to first come through and select the table currency. And what we'll see at the bottom here, I got it, I don't know why. Oh, let me select currency. Then you'll see I have, it tells me currency is a table, and I have a expand button down here that I could expand it a little bit more and see this other information about it. Let me make this a little bit bigger in case that kind of helps. Right about there should probably be better for everybody. Okay, so I expanded this here, and you can see currency. It tells me it's a table. It tells me its DAX name is quoted currency. There's 28 rows in it with 3 columns, and it's a table type of a dimension. And we could click through the different tables, and we see, obviously different sets of values. And up here, we'll see what those specific columns are. So if I click on company name, I'll see that its full name is company, bracketed company name. Its minimum value is Albany Company, and the maximum is York Company. And there's 386 distinct values, and it's a data type of a string. So this is all good information, right, to help you learn the data model so you know what you're going to look at. Let's look a little bit deeper at the date table. You can see sometimes what they do is they also put things within a folder structure. So if we look at the calendar year, we can see that they use a naming standard for their calendar years where they say CY for calendar year 2005 to calendar year 2011. So this really helps us understand when we're working with their model, number one, where everything is and what the values that we need to be using are. Sometimes it's very important to not only see, the tables in this setup, but to see them in a diagram. And they provide us that capability. Here's a diagram view, and you see it's going to open up onto a new tab. And I could come in here, I'm going to reduce this down just a little bit. And so it will draw out my diagram, or the diagram for the model that they're providing, in this case, the Contoso model. And I get to see in a nice format, similar to what we see in Power BI Desktop, what the relationships look like. And this is one of the keys, right? We could see that the date table has 3 relationships with only one being active, the active relationship being to the order date from the date table. We also have a relationship to delivery date and a third relationship to due date. So we know if we wanted to do any of the measures based upon these other dates, we'd have to activate this. And if you don't know DAX, that's this used relationship. That's not in my presentation today, but you'll see how maybe you could read the documentation and come here and start messing around with the used relationship if that's a function you want to help learn. Okay, so we have the Contoso model and this dax.guide model. Now I could come over and switch to this. I have the same type of things that I could set up, but what I wanted to highlight is when I come up with this diagram view, you could see these 2 tabs are now synchronized. And I'm going to go ahead, by default, it moves this color group to a place that I don't like it. So I'm going to move it to look like this, so I have a better understanding of what color group is doing. And the nice thing is, this is why I came in under private mode, because I've done this a bunch of times in my own browser. In the browsers that I have that are non-private, it keeps, I believe it's probably a cookie or something. It will remember how you laid out your diagrams, how you laid out your interface to work with dax.do. So you don't have to do this all, the next couple times. So that's a really good feature, right, for setting up for how to use this for quite a bit. All right, well, let's get back to it, right? We talked about, we're going to write some DAX, and we're this far into it, and we haven't done any DAX writing yet. So let's do our first DAX query. I want to flip back really quick to my presentation. And I'm going to go back to this slide. And we're going to basically start building this from the bottom up, but ignore this last order by. We'll talk about that towards the end, right? But we're going to start from the bottom up because that's how you kind of see dax.queries work. What's important is this evaluate and then what's after the evaluate. Every query starts with evaluate. And again, we're not used to seeing that within Power BI Desktop because we're writing measures and it's generating these queries behind the scenes. Okay, so going back to our dax.do, we know we need to start with evaluate. So let's write that. And you'll see it has an option to help with completing the syntax. In these type of tools, this is called an autocomplete, right? And a lot of the other tools we deal with, like Power BI Desktop, it's called IntelliSense. So autocomplete, it provides this autocomplete functionality. So we'll choose evaluate. And anytime that I'm learning a new tool, new language, a lot of us that have done coding in the past, we like to work with, the hello world. So let's write our hello DAX. Now remember, the rules of a query is a query must return a table. So if I want to just say hello DAX here, well, this isn't going to be a table. It's a single value. It's a string. And if you'll see now that I started writing up here, we have a bunch of options on the toolbar that have been enabled. And so we could come up here, we'll talk a little bit more about sharing. We have an undo. If we undo once, we'll get our redo. We could do copy, paste, clear. This helps us comment and uncomment. The biggest one that I like is format. If you ever write a lot of DAX queries, a lot of DAX code, even measures, your best practice is to format it. And so to remember that, I jokingly say, there's no DAX query that actually will run until you can format it. We have a run button to run everything, or we could run a particular line. So let's try to format this. And if we do that, you can see it formatted just okay. We didn't get any errors or anything. But when we go to do run, it's going to come back and say, the expression specified in the query is not a valid table expression. Well, we could fix that very easily in DAX with the curly brackets. So the curly brackets basically set up for practical purposes, turn what's in between the curly brackets into a table. So now this is setting up a single value table. So it's going to be one row, one column that will be returned. We'll hit our format again, and the format works, so we know we haven't missed anything syntactically. We click run, and we get our value now. All right, so we've written our first DAX query with dax.do. Now, one of the things that we can do is we could do sharing of this if we wanted to write templates or we wanted to write other things to share with people. This sharing capability is a great feature that they have here. And I use this on forums to answer questions at times. If people don't provide a data set, I'll try to come out here to the Contoso data set, make up as much as I can to help answer their question and provide the query to them. So you see here when you hit that share button, the little cloud, it's going to come up with a window that says save your code. It'll have your privacy policy and just give you a little bit of information about that. So now I could say save and share. And when it comes up, it gives me a public link and it gives me a private link. This private link is for you if you ever want to save it and edit it, right? Obviously this one, me sharing it, it's not a big deal for anybody else to get in because I'm really not going to use this again. But I could copy this link out. And in fact, I will. I'll copy it and I'll put this one into the chat for later as well. Anybody could try to get to. They also give you embed code so that you have, this is the HTML you could use and copy. It has it for a WordPress format, as a docx, just copy this as possible. And it will give you a better looking, setup in your blog if you're using a blog post or something, or even a forum. It gives it a nicer style. And we're going to see that in just a little bit because they use it on their dax.guide site as well. Okay, so we understand a lot more of the functionality of this now. So let's get back into writing this query. So we've done this evaluate, right? We have an understanding of what has to happen under evaluate. We see this variable, and we could trace it back to here. They're producing the variable for primary window, and it's a top N. And when I look at this, I'm like, well, okay, let me first start with, I don't know top N, so let me learn top N. So let me come back over to dax.do, and I'm going to just start underneath my evaluate top N. Again, it could autocomplete. This is another great feature of dax.do. You could see once you put in a function and it recognizes the dax function, it starts telling you the syntax of that function and how you can complete it. A great help in trying to learn what to write within these different functions. So I could see the first thing that it wants is an N value. Well, that's still a little bit confusing to me, not really ever using top N before. So I'm going to click on top N, and what we'll see, and I'm going to make this a whole lot bigger, is that here's all of our help now, right? They link directly to dax.guide. And not only do we get what the syntax is, but we get the definition of what everything needs to be. The N value is the number of rows to return. If you remember over in that other, the query we captured, it was 3. Then we have to give a table that we want it to take those rows from, the order by expression, the order. And then it tells us what the return is. It's going to return a table, which is always important to know, with the top N values. Oh, there's that N value again of the table, or an empty table if N value is 0 or less. They also link to their articles on how to utilize that, like this function, or any articles that they have on their site that references top N. The other nice thing is you could click right on their dax.guide top N, and it will bring up, in just a second, a much more robust. It's the same type of thing, but here's all their examples. Okay, I'm going to click on this allow cookies, and then they also have videos. So the SQL BI guys on their channel, on their YouTube channel, have published a video for pretty much every DAX function that is out there, showing you how to use it. They're usually very short, within a minute or less. I think maybe some might go up to 2 minutes if it's a complicated function, but usually very short. So it helps you really start to learn them. It tells you that the table, it's going to iterate over it, kind of what some of that may mean. Oops, it gets into their other articles. Let me back up on that. I didn't mean to click there. That the order by will be done by row context and all that type of stuff. These examples are really what's going to help you pretty much learn it. And if you remember when I showed you the share it function, they had an embed code. Their embed code produces this type of embed for going onto a web page. And the nice thing is they have this try it button. So I'm going to click try it. And here I am now back in dax.do. You can see I actually went to a new browser tab. It switched me over to dax.guide. And I have their code that was on this example that I can sit here and mess with and look at, and down below are the results. So from that code, getting the top 3 values from this table, and we're going to dissect this a little bit more. This is the end result. A lot of this is extremely fast because they do a lot of caching to help with a lot of this. Okay, so let's go through and use this now to help us learn this top N. And we could, again, bring up our reference over here. We're going to try to walk through it just a little bit more. So we knew this was our N value, so we want 3 rows. This right here is the entire table, looking at our syntax that's over here. Actually, it changed from top N to, so we got N value table, then our order by expression in order. So this is our table, this is our order by expression here, and this is our order. This is the whole part of top N. The rest of this is around the evaluate, and they added another order by off of the evaluate. As I showed, we already have the results because they cached it, but we could go ahead and run it. We're going to get the same results down below. So that's great. It's an easy way to kind of dissect, get some information about it. But the way I tend to learn is I want to make some little change to it and then learn from there. So let's say I want to, instead of get the top 3 rows, I want to get the bottom 3 rows. So the first thing that I'm going to do is change the descending to ascending. And I'm not going to worry about this order by because that's not part of the top N. That's how the results will be ordered by. Okay. So I'm hoping that this will give me the results, but I'm going to give you a spoiler alert. It really doesn't. And here, let me run it and then I'll explain why. Bring this up. Now look at this. I'm getting 282 rows, and all of them, the sales amount is blank. This is one of the interesting things that happens with top N is it handles ties. So when there are ties, it returns everything about that tie, which in this case is the 282 results. So now if I really want to get the bottom 3, I have to probably start thinking about what else that I want to do. And one of the things that I could do within here is start understanding what this this whole table looks like in order for me to start figuring out maybe my next set of DAX to write. So I'm going to decode this entire table. I'm going to start with the values because this itself, you could see values here. This function will return a table. It says it returns a column of unique values. It's going to return it as a table. So let's first take this piece of the code, and I'm going to put this above here. And I could put multiple evaluates within one editor. Sorry, I thought that would have just done that. And now I'm going to go ahead and run the whole thing again. And what we'll see down below is we have 2 result sets. The first one is from this evaluate values, and we could see everything we have in that from that DAX function, what's being returned. So there's 2,517 rows. Well, that's interesting, but that's not the entire table that I'm working with. The next part of the table, it runs this add columns. And again, if I want to learn what add columns is, I'm going to keep referring back to this. I know it probably would get a little bit annoying, but it's what really makes this tool special. I could see what add columns does just by reading through, everything on this side. So I'm going to take this whole table, this add columns. I'm going to copy this again, and I'm going to write another evaluate and copy that code here. And again, I could run all of it all at once. And now you see I have 3 result sets and these tabs here. So we already know what the first one looks like. Let's look at the second one because that's what we're concerned about. And if we start paging through, we could see that in this table from this add columns, we're getting products that have a blank result. So that's not automatically being pulled out. So what's something that we could do for that? If you've ever looked at a lot of the DAX functions, and if you if you haven't, right, you could come over here into dax.guide, and let's go to the very beginning of it. Actually go this way, right? And we could see that it breaks down in categories what our different functions are. And one of them is our filter functions. And so if we just kind of scan through this, probably I would think a lot of people are familiar with the filter function within DAX. So let's just pick that. And we're going to use that to help us understand what we want to do with this table. But again, learning DAX is really all about learning the functions that are available and then what those functions do. And starting at this level where it categorizes it really helps you with that. Okay, so let's come back. I think it's going to be this tab. And let's see if we could start filtering out from this table the values of some amount that are blank. Now, one of the other things I really wanted to point out is you notice the style that that the SQL BI guys use to name temporary columns that are being produced, right? So this add columns produces a table within, kind of a virtual table. And they use a standard that they put an @ sign at the beginning of the column names in order to show that it's within a virtual table. So and in the once we can kind of get the link to you, there's 2 articles they have of naming columns, temporary columns, and naming variables inside DAX that is within that link. And it's very useful. It's a very good standard to follow within your own code, but especially if you're looking for help out on the forums and you want people that really understand DAX to help you with it. If you follow that standard, they could read it a whole lot easier and they'll be able to help you with it. All right, so let's get to adding. We're going to put our filter function, and you'll see as soon as I hit enter, again, it tells me what I want to be able to filter. So I'm going to filter, I'm going to keep this table. We're working on the second query here. And I'm going to come in here. And what I want to do is filter out any @ sales amount that happens to be blank. Well, it's blank is not something you could actually do an equal by, or at least I haven't found a good way of doing that. So there is another function called isBlank. And I'm going to say isBlank @ sales amount. So now what that's going to do in this, if I ran this right now, let me actually do one more. There we go. That seems to be everything that I need. Again, I could check my syntax using the format. And since I didn't get any scary little boxes, that tells me my syntax is good. Let me just take one parenthesis off because I do want y'all to see if I do have an error and I hit format, I'm going to get this nasty little syntax error expected up here. It's not always as helpful, right? But most of the time, what it's going to be is a parenthesis, a comma, but at least you know that it's not going to run by doing their format. Okay, so if we go ahead and we run this, and I'm going to go ahead and comment out, we don't need this one anymore, so I could just hit comment. Oops. Let's undo that. And I guess I didn't have everything selected all the way through, so let's comment that set of lines out. And we're going to go ahead and run this. Okay. So this is not really what I want because you can see in this first table, everything that's coming back is blank. And it kind of makes sense because I'm filtering where this condition has to be true, that the sales amount is blank. So I need to reverse that. And there's a not function. And so all not does is reverse the logical condition that's within it. Again, I could, changes false to true and true to false. It's a fairly simple function. Go ahead and hit my format, make sure I didn't miss anything. Run this. And now you can see I'm getting the values that I want. I have less rows than I had before. I only have 2,235. And if I page through, I could visually see I don't have any of the blank values. That's perfect. That's really what I want. So I'm going to take this whole line, copy it, and I'm going to replace that into the table that I'm providing with underneath the top N. Format that. And I am going to go ahead and comment out the second one again, because we don't need that. And now let's see what our original query returns. Well, there it is, just the bottom three. So to me, that's a good example of how you could sit there and learn DAX within this sandbox environment, because you could deconstruct your query in a very easy environment, right? Rather than having to stand up all these different things, Power BI Desktop or DAX Studio or whatever within your own environment, just to help you learn the functions, what they do, and how they could work. And again, save it, pass them on to other people, right? This is the value that I see within it. All right, well, let's try
So
to get back to.
is it
Yeah, go
possible
ahead.
to is it possible to sort of import any of our schemas or any of our models that we have previously sort of prepared, or import that here and then start using it and play around with that?
No, yeah. So, and I get that question a lot, and I think I try to cover it at another point in my conversation, but this is a good time to do it. The answer to that is no, right? And one of the good things that I like about what they have on dax.do is they have the data model and the schema, everything, all the data set up. So that these guys are the top professionals in it. So, excuse me. So they've done a good job of setting up their data model, right? There's not going to be any problems within the data model. So you really only have to focus on the DAX. Besides that, they don't have the infrastructure behind the scenes to totally just take on any other type of model, right? That would be kind of costly to them. Now, what they do have is they did an interview. Marco did an interview with Reed Havens. If you're familiar with him, he's got a great YouTube channel. You can find it out there where they talk about what the architecture is. And if you wanted to try to stand up your own, you could try to do that. I would probably say that's a little bit excessive for most people. When you're trying to do this on your own, what you're going to utilize are tools like you're going to stand up, say, Power BI Desktop if it's on your own machine, and you'll attach something like DAX Studio to it, right? But DAX Studio doesn't have the integrated dax.guide help and everything. It has autocomplete and things like that, but it's not enough that helps you really all in one environment read the documentation, test it, and go from there. Plus, you may or may not have your model set up correctly. So I always find that when I'm working, or trying to learn, I come to this environment rather than my own environment to get rid of all of those distractions, right? Because a lot of times
Yeah,
I'll
I
get back
believe
on
it's
that.
the sanity of that model is already done. So all you need
Yeah,
to do is sort of go in there and use it as a learning resource, and then
exactly.
get your hands dirty with what's already there, and then try to sort of use the for functionality to do any scenario that you could sort of think of based on what
Right.
you have. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, so let's try to move through. I know we want to kind of keep this to, just under an hour and everything. And I'm going to try to pick up the speed here a little bit in order to do that. So let's get back to my presentation and look at, right, so we covered top end. We have a really good understanding of what this is doing now. So we can read that it's returning 1,001 rows. off of a variable called DS core. You got to love the way Microsoft, when it generates DAX, names its tables. And it's going off of calendar month with one, and so this is the order by, and they use 1 or 0 for ascending or descending, and then this is just how they get their sorting to be done. So the real key is next is going to be our summarized columns. And so we're going to build something close to this summarized columns. And you'll see summarized columns used quite a bit within Power BI Desktop to produce your table results. So I'm going to go back over to my little cheat sheet here. And I'm going to copy from that in order to kind of help us move on just a little bit faster. So I'm going to take all this out. Okay. So what I ended up building here, to make it somewhat close, actually, yeah, let me walk through this way because this will help. This is actually a different exercise. I'm sorry. Let me look to see if I have. I don't have that. Okay. Since we're here, let's try to walk through. Let me actually clear everything and start over. All right, so we're going to look again at that summarized columns, and if we noticed, coming up, there we go. This summarized columns was going off a calendar month number. This table here, which is a filter table off of this treat as, and then it brought in a measure called total unit price and named it total unit price. And so let's build this whole part here, including this treat as part. So my tab order is not working as well as I was hoping. Let's come back here. We're going to switch to our Contoso. And we're going to start with, remember we had the months. Evaluate is where we need to first start. We're going to say summarize columns. And let's take a look at our calendar. And we're going to want month. So we could just drag and drop things. And oh, okay. One of the things I forgot to show earlier, sometimes they have hidden columns. And so you could come here and say, show hidden metrics. And you can see now, like my date key showed up, day of week number, and then the one that I wanted was month number. So I'm going to bring that over into here as well. I need a comma between those two. And then remember we had a measure there that we gave a name. I'm going to use more of their naming standard. I'm going to just call it my measure for now. And I'm going to look over here and find a fact table, which sales is, you can see the little icon difference, and find a measure that's on here that's good to use. And we'll go ahead and just use sales amount. So let me change this to sales amount again. So I have my parentheses matching up. Let's do our format. We could see it run, it formats well. And let's go ahead and run it and just see what we get. And if we look at the bottom here, we get, different numbers for every single month, which is good, but they're really, really high, right? And because there's no other context being given to this query, or there's no other filtering being given to this query, this is just adding up sales amount by month, grouping it by month and month number, and giving that entire amount. But I actually only want to get it for one particular year. That's what was in that other query. So that's where our treat as comes in. And so now we're going to introduce a different section to the dax.query called the define section. And up in define, we can produce measures. We could produce variables. Most everything, that's normally the two things that you're going to do. And then you define a variable and put something into that variable. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to do var, and we're going to call it underscore year filter. And then we're going to say equals. And remember, I showed you there was that treat as. So treat as a function. Again, it comes up and tells us what the syntax looks like. Tells us here what is going on with treat as. Treat as is a very good function to use to kind of help you move relationships or move filtering values depending on what you have inside your model. I use it all the time. Okay. So remember earlier we talked about a table because the first part is an expression, but that expression really has to be a table that comes in. So I'm going to give, remember when we looked at our year earlier, it was started with CY, and I'm going to use CY 2007 as a filtering value, or off of our date table, it's under calendar year. So I'm going to move exactly where I wanted it. Okay, it's having fun with me now, isn't it? All right, that looks better. Okay, so remember, right, we could take a look at, let me get calendar year back up here, right? We could see we have probably the right type of values because we got CY 2005 to CY 2011. So we're just going to pick 2007 and we're going to say treat the value of CY 2007 as, this is the wrong thing. I want it calendar year, not calendar year month. Okay. I want you to treat this value as if it's the value in calendar year. And then we're going to take this variable and put it into our summarized columns. We're going to make it the third parameter. And the way this works is after your grouping parameters in summarized columns, you can see here it's got group by column that's repeatable. You can start putting filter tables. You can put one or more. We're just going to have the one. And then the last set of values is your expression. And you give it you give it the name and then the expression. All right, so let's see here. Everything worked out just fine. So remember on our first set of values, right, we got these really high, numbers here, 2.031 million, right? So let's run it again. And we're going to see that the values went down. Hey, great. So now these are the right values that are for the calendar year of 2007. All right. Well, now we've learned just a little bit more. Let's go back to our exercise. And I think that we've learned enough, right? And I don't know that we have to do this, that we should know how to put this all together. We built every part of this query with the example that's out on dax.do. We know what top n is. We could move this summarize into a variable just like we had their filter table go into a variable. And if we want to take 2 minutes to go ahead and do that, let me see if I can get there real quick, just to kind of wrap up what this exercise would look like, and then we'll pretty much call it done. So I could take this part here, and I could set a new variable. They called it like DS core. So I'll call it DS core just for fun. And then they had a var of DS window or something like that, right? And it was top n. Remember, we know how to write that. 1001. Our table is going to be our DS core table. And you can see when dax.do recognizes variables, it just pops it up for us. We'll give it one order by, and it'll be our date month number. We don't have to specify the whole thing, just to kind of get what our example is. And I'm going to say descending. And then our evaluate is simply this DS window. Format all of that. I got really lucky there. We run it. We're not going to see any difference, right? Because, you know, this 1001 is kind of how Power BI handles some paging, right? But if I just said 2, right, I could see that it is going to change and only give me the 2 rows. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and stop there. And, you know, I don't know if you have any more questions. I know we've hit about the top of the hour. I think I went a little bit slower than I hoped to at the beginning. But I hope this really kind of helps you understand how to utilize dax.do, how it can help you with your learning, and how you can kind of deconstruct or reconstruct queries that you see in different places. Again, I think in forums it's very helpful, or if you want to give examples to your team on how to do things, and you could utilize the Contoso model to do that, it's a very good tool for that. Have a little repository of it. What do you think? Do you have any additional questions? Any comments?
Yeah, I think it's a great tool to sort of if for someone also who's coming from a different sort of software engineering background, or someone who has development background, who's coming from there, it's easy to adapt to certain sort of use cases or certain tools where they
Mm-hmm.
can start, sort of building up the reporting requirements. If they have certain requirements that have already been in place and they want to switch to DAX, right? I think this is a great starting point. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it really helps in getting up to speed with a non-traditional approach. So a lot of people would, sort of dive into the basics and start doing things, whereas this would be a complete flip where you dive into the, the schemas and the, the databases and the models, and then start building up from there and get directly
Mm-hmm.
on into the formulas. So that
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
interesting approach.
I totally agree with you there, especially the people that are developers of other languages, right? And they know very much that what they really need to do is understand the syntax, the intricacies of that language. And again, I kind of get distracted. I know myself when I start doing it all through Power BI, I keep switching between the things that I'm doing. And if I just start focusing on learning DAX and what DAX could do, because it is such an important language um, within Power BI, this sandbox approach, I think, is a great way for somebody to learn it. Just one last thing, one thing that I brought up here, I publish a report on to the public off of Power BI that aggregates a lot of the Power BI meetup meetings. And I can't remember if you guys have a meetup group. I don't think I went through that to find you.
Mm-hmm.
If you do, I need to add you to this report.
Sure,
But
sure.
if you go to this URL or scan this QR code that's on the page, and I'll put
Okay.
this in the link as well.
Yeah, you
Um,
could add that in the chat, and then I can start,
yeah,
sort of accessing it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it lets you know a lot of different virtual meetups that are going on around the world to help you with your Power BI learning. So try to use that as a resource. Well, thank
Sounds
you
good.
for hosting me today. I know we're right up against the 1 o'clock hour, and we were
Yeah.
trying to keep it just a little bit shorter. Um, Again, anybody that has any questions or anything, reach out to me, especially on Twitter. I'd love to talk to you.